We're told that success is the ultimate goal. It is the key to happiness. It is the key to your purpose, to fulfillment in life. But what if it's all been a lie? What if it is a narrative that we have been fed for marketing purposes, for product purposes? What if all of it is actually a little bit skewed? And what if there were a better way to achieve success without sacrificing so much of your health, your wellness, your mindset, the psychology, the emotional attachment that we get to it? Today, we're going to look at confessions of high achievers all throughout the world. Some are in the past, some are present figures, some are of my own, and the hidden truths behind their success. Welcome, everyone, to a Mindset Medicine podcast. I am your host, Katharine Loucaidou, and we are going to be diving deep into the confessions because here's what I think. I think that a lot of information has been hidden about success. We have been provided information, given images, provided stories, rags to riches, the bold and the beautiful. And we see all of this success in your industry where you are now. I am sure either you yourself have gained a lot of success, you have watched other people climb up the ladder of success, whether it's in a corporation, a company, a business, real estate, no matter what the industry is, you've watched it unfold. But here is what you haven't seen are those deep thoughts going through the minds of those the high achievers, the highly ambitious, the ultimate successful people. What is it that they go to bed thinking about at night? What is it that keeps them awake? What are the thoughts going through their mind when things may not be going the way they want it to go? What happens when they get sick? Do they sit back and say, well, that's okay, it was all worth it? I don't think they do. And I have some research that, of course, I dug into to give us a little theory and actually reveal what some of the confessions of high achievers have been. So I have divided this into 8 parts today because I think it's important that we delve into the different parts of success. What are the confessions that go along with some of those segments, as well as research, examples? It's going to be a fun episode. And if you are a high achiever, as I am, and you have been on the go, you have been hustling your butt off for so many years now. Myself, it's been 30 years. I think there is an awareness that comes at a certain point. And the awareness is not that success wasn't worth it. I think the awareness is that the story that we've been told about success may not have been 100% truthful. And there were gaps in the story that I'm about to fill in for you that nobody seems to talk about, but I know for a fact that it's present out there. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to fill in some gaps with some truths about success. And if there is a better way of achieving success on your terms and still level up, become the best version of yourself. But what if there were a better way to do it? We're going to dive in. First segment is the achievement trap. And it is a trap because ambition can be a double-edged sword. It drives incredible achievement and accomplishments, and it helps you to reach the accolades and the awards. But what it can do is it can leave an emotional void. And that emotional void can lack alignment with your values. So at the beginning, it's very exciting when you are achieving the awards. I mean, it is truly exhilarating. You did it. You proved to yourself, you proved to others that you managed to receive that level of an award or an accolade, or maybe it was a raise, whatever it was for you. It was truly a fulfilling moment that first time it happens in business. Here's the issue. What happens when you have now reached the awards that you wanted to reach, and you've been doing it for many, many years, because that is what high achievers do, right? They're always surpassing their last milestone. So what happens when you've surpassed that milestone 10, 15 times? I'm going to read you a confession. And if you haven't been following me on social media, I would love for you to follow the journey that I've just begun. I have started an experiment. I want to know what happens when I post every single day the topic of confessions of a high achiever, and I have decided that I'm going to commit to it for 365 days. What happens? Will I change people's perspectives? Will more people follow? Will less people follow? Is it something that will entice people? I don't know, but I'm not afraid to find out. My first confession that I posted yesterday. I've reached every goal I've ever set for myself, but here I am. On paper, it's all there. The accolades, the awards, the milestones, beat them all. But in reality, it can feel hollow. And it's true. You can continue to get the awards and receive the achievements. And yes, they still feel good at the moment. But I often think to myself, even actors and actresses winning a Golden Globe, winning the Emmy, it's wonderful for the first week. But then what happens week 2 and week 3? Do they feel fulfilled, or do they start to begin to feel hollow? There is research, and it is called the arrival fallacy, and it is described by Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar. And the arrival fallacy is the mistaken belief that achieving a goal will bring lasting happiness. Goals trigger this dopamine rush within us, and they give a momentary satisfaction, right? You felt it, that rush of excitement, that rush of adrenaline, like, oh, it is so amazing to be acknowledged for making an achievement, for reaching that milestone, acknowledge an internal acknowledgement, but also an external acknowledgement. Look, I did it. However, your brain resets so quickly after that that the next high is never as high as the previous one. And it leads to this endless cycle of striving and hoping that the fulfillment and happiness and excitement that you felt will last, but it doesn't. You see this a lot in people when they buy a very expensive car. And I mean, to very high levels, very expensive sport car. It's great. Maybe month 1, month 2, month 3. But then what happens? That feeling, the dopamine goes away. And they are still left with the hollow feeling they felt before they bought the car. I want to go through this today and show you other ways that you may be able to capture that fulfillment and lasting enthusiasm without chasing success, but maybe attracting it to you. So an example from Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is a very interesting actor because very famous. He was a very famous actor and a comedian. But this is what he said. I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they've ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer to success. So these are some really interesting points just to sit on, to think about, which is why I called it the achievement trap. Because sometimes you can get trapped in the cycle of wanting that feeling of accomplishment and achievement. But the problem is that it's not internally aligned with exactly who you are. You're chasing it, but are you chasing it for yourself? If so, it will leave a lasting impression on you. If you are chasing it for other people, that's a different story. So here is a tip, and I'm going to give you a tip after each segment we go through. If this is something that you have felt, where you have felt an emptiness, when you should be feeling amazing that you have accomplished so much, but yet you just don't seem to feel like that right now, I'd like you to write in a journal. And if you don't have a journal right now, just get a piece of paper, even on your phone, dictate into your notes app. Journal about a recent achievement and reflect on whether it brought you that feeling of fulfillment and contentment that you were hoping that it would. Was it all worth it for you? Consider how you can align all of your future goals with your core values so that when you do reach those milestones, boy, they mean a lot to you. They really will feel like a true accomplishment. That is where you will get your sense of fulfillment from success, because it truly is fulfilling the value that you had, that vision that you had created, which means something to you. Let's go on to number 2. The cost of relentless pursuit. So here is my confession number 4. There's this guilt that creeps in whenever I try to slow down, like rest is something I haven't earned. This is a big one for me, and I don't know whether it's because there is a mixture of being a woman, a mother, and a high achiever, or whether it's just the mindset of a high achiever. And maybe you can answer that question for me. I will never pretend to understand what a male high achiever thinks. I can only look at observation and go by what people tell me when my clients speak to me about their successes. But I imagine that anyone who is a high achiever, you're always on. The button that is on and off is on most of the time, most of the day. And when you try to relax, let's say it's Sunday, you are relaxing. Are you okay just sitting there, no computer, not doing anything? You are just being. Are you able to do that? For many high achievers, rest is equated with weakness, laziness, and a feeling of guilt. Like there's always something you should and could be working on. And unfortunately, this mindset perpetuates chronic overwork, burnout, and stress. Now, in my podcast from last week, I told you all that I have been diagnosed with chronic stress, adrenal fatigue. And although I was like, oh my gosh, really? If I think about it, I'd be like, I guess, yes, that makes sense, because I never allow myself to rest. Because if I'm resting, I'm not contributing. If I'm resting, is that lazy? Maybe that's a narrative that I need to be working on. Is this something that you've been able to overcome? Maybe you don't have this issue at all. Maybe you have the same issue as I do. So, what's interesting is that there's this interesting paradox that although we're working all the time, when you get to the point of overwork and stress and burnout, your creativity actually goes down. And so does your productivity because you become, your mind becomes foggy. The clarity just seems to go out the window. You're just finishing one task after another. And it's a shame to get to that point. And most of the time, you don't even realize that you've got to that point until your body starts sending you signals. And that's when you have to stop and listen. And then you get to reset and change everything. And this is something that I have been doing since my heart attack and open heart surgery 18 years ago. I learned to reset, but I obviously didn't learn well enough because I allowed myself to continue going at full speed. I feel good when I'm going at full speed. However, I also feel really good when I'm on vacation and I'm relaxing. So I think it's finding the balance between the two. And what I have been working on this past year is doing that, finding the balance. And what's interesting is I have become more productive with less time spent because I'm very intentional about where to spend my time. And I'm also very intentional about going outside, getting out in nature, going for a walk, just sitting and being. Let's keep going. There is a very famous person, Arianna Huffington. If you have not followed Arianna Huffington, who was the editor and owner of the Huffington Post, she has a very interesting story. And in 2000, and I believe it was 9 or 10, she was in her office. She passed out, hit her head against her desk, broke her cheekbones, broke the bones in part of her face. And essentially, she had collapsed from exhaustion. She realized she had neglected her well-being, her health, for the sake of her career. She ended up selling the Huffington Post in 2011, but she went on to build a new company called Thrive. And she has now partnered with OpenAI to create Thrive Global, which is an AI app for your health. So you see here, you can be successful, which she was with the Huffington Post. You can learn that your health and well-being is extremely vital for your longevity. And then you can go on to create something even more successful with the knowing that this time round, you're going to really protect your health and your well-being. So this podcast will never be anti-success. It is against anti-hustle. It is against the stories that the hustle and the grind is okay. I think you have to learn what that balance is for you. Here is a confession that Arianna Huffington made. We think mistakenly that success is the result of the amount of time we put in at work, instead of the quality of time we put in. Quantity versus quality. And that's what I was talking about a few minutes ago. This year, I have been very intentional about the quality of my work and the quality of my time versus the quantity of work and how much I take on. I'm very careful to choose where I want to put my energy and my time now. And that has been a game changer for me. High achievers need to understand that relentless work without rest isn't sustainable. And Ariana's story, my story, and so many others who have discovered that they have chronic stress or they just have health issues. Sometimes it is very difficult when we are dealing with traditional medicine to understand what the root of our health issues is. But if you take time and you start to become aware of how you do things and where you do them and who you do them with, you're going to start realizing that the root cause of so many health issues stems from stress and overwork. So it's important to remember that stress is a signal that you need to pause, you need to recharge so that you can come back stronger. Productivity thrives and grows and exponentially explodes when you are balanced, when you feel energized, when you have slept well, when you eat healthy. That is when you are at your most productive, not when you are hustling and grinding without taking care of yourself. So here is your takeaway from this section. I would like you to start giving yourself permission without guilt to take a 30-minute intentional break during your day. And intentional means you're going to turn everything off and you're going to do something that you love doing. Whatever that could be, something that will refill you, refuel your soul so that you can go back at it again. Because like I said, we're not throwing success to the side. We're not telling you to quit your job. I'm just telling you to look at things through a different lens where you come first. So let's go to number 3, the fear of letting go of control. Oh, this is a big one. Do you know anyone who likes to control what's going on in their environments? If you're a high achiever, this is likely you. So yes, I'm speaking to you. The urge, here is my confession. Number 5, I have this urge to control every detail because if I'm honest, I don't trust things to be done right without me. Do any of you have that as a confession? Have any of you been in a situation where you did hand over control for someone else to take care of something and it wasn't done right? It wasn't done at all. This mindset stems from perfectionism, obviously, and an underlying fear of vulnerability. Because what happens is when you leverage your work and your time, you are being vulnerable by handing over part of what you need to do to someone else. High achievers often equate control with security, right? You feel good. You're in control. How many people won't let someone else drive them somewhere because they feel in control of the steering wheel? How many of you need to control the way your business is running or certain daily activities you won't hand over because you've always been doing them? You do them better. Control can lead to micromanagement, and it will actually stunt the growth of your business. It will stunt the evolution of your family and your relationships if you also micromanage people in your family. A very famous example of an individual who had to learn to let go of control was Steve Jobs. So, co-founder of Apple, I'm sure you've heard of him, a visionary behind revolutionary products like the iPhone and Mac. He was known to be extremely meticulous, and he once admitted his struggle with trusting others with very critical decisions and overseeing every single detail to perfection. His shift happened after he was ousted from Apple and he went to work on at Next and Pixar. And working in those companies actually taught him the power of empowering others. So when he returned to Apple, he began to trust his design lead and other key team members, which sparked this new product line that we now know of: the iPod, the iPhone, the iMac, the MacBook. All of these things all sparked because he learned to hand over control. And I love the quote that he gave when he was interviewed upon going back to Apple. It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and then tell them what to do. We hire smart people so that they can tell us what to do. Think about that for a minute. Why do we believe, as a high achiever, that we are the be all and end all? Why do we think that we know how to do everything to perfection? If we were completely honest with ourselves, we would admit that we have shortfalls, we have shortcomings, and there are gaps in our knowledge. No one knows everything yet. This shows us that real success, real growth comes from trusting others, leveraging your time, leveraging skills, and empowering those around you. Also, embracing vulnerability, because you need to be vulnerable and humble enough to say, this may not be my strength. I need to find someone who has the strength that I need in order to move my business forward. If you are having relationship issues, friendship issues, be humble enough to say, I don't know how to fix these. I think I need to talk to someone who may. I was having a conversation with my husband the other night, and we were talking about how is it that we can bring a person around, a high achiever around, to understanding that they need help working through a challenge, right? As a coach for high achievers, one of my goals is to help them figure out what's next. And it's not always a huge milestone. Sometimes, and a lot of the calls I've had recently, I have actually solved their entire business problem in one phone call, because we just have to find what most people think is the problem in their business or relationships is never actually the thing that is the problem. You need to dig a little deeper, go a few layers deeper, and find the root issue of the problem and start solving from there. Because when you can get to the root of an issue, you can then build and rebuild back up again. Most of the time, things start to deteriorate on the surface because the root of the problem, that's where the issue is. It's important to understand that giving up control also has to do with doubting others' abilities. But think of it this way. If you have hired someone to help you and you don't trust in their abilities, then you haven't hired correctly. Think about that for a minute. You have hired someone to help you in your business, maybe in your household, maybe it's your marriage, maybe it's someone in your life that you are entrusting something to, but then when it actually comes time to trusting them, you don't. Well, there's a flaw there, isn't there? Use your stress, use your self-doubt, use your vulnerability and your skills to push your boundaries, but leverage your time as well. So here is a takeaway for you. I would like you to start by delegating one small task today to someone else. Is it within your household? Maybe it's at work. Hand over something that you don't necessarily have to be doing. Do you have to hand it over to a physical person? No. You can use AI. Let AI help you work faster and easier. That's why I wrote my book, AI Secrets for Unstoppable Business Success and Life Hacks. Because when you realize that you can get help with AI to speed up a project, speed up brainstorming and content ideas, your emails can be organized. There is so much that AI can do for you. One more quote to reinforce this idea about control is actually from Oprah Winfrey, which you would imagine is very much an A-type personality. You cannot do it all yourself. Don't be afraid to rely on others to help you accomplish your goals. It is not a weakness. It is a strength to leverage others. What we know about perfection is that it usually comes with expectations, high expectations, and also your self-worth. So here is my confession number 43, and I'm foreshadowing some of these confessions that you're going to be seeing on social media. I set impossible standards, telling myself that anything less isn't good enough. Where do we get this idea of perfectionism? Typically, it has come from our childhood when we are proving our worth to someone, a parent, maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a coach, but somewhere along the line, we felt the need that we had to prove who we are and our worth to someone. High achievers, they fear failure so intensely that they set unrealistic standards for themselves, leaving very little room for their growth or celebration of a milestone. Think about this for a minute. Did you set a goal for yourself last year or for this year as we're nearing the end of 2024? Have you set a goal that you have not quite hit? Do you feel as though you have failed? Or do you look back at what you have accomplished? Did you have other challenges that you had to deal with this year? And were you still able to reach many of your goals? It's typically the lens that we are looking through that is skewed. Jeff Bezos once remarked in an interview, and Jeff Bezos, as you know, is the owner of Amazon. If you cannot tolerate critics, don't do anything new or interesting. Because even the most successful people will recognize that risk and imperfection are a part of your journey. You need things to be imperfect so that you learn and grow. Perfection doesn't exist. Perfection is a standard set by who? When will you ever be satisfied with how you did a job? Could there always have been something better you could have done? What about with yourself, your self-worth? When you look at yourself in the mirror, do you consider yourself perfect? Or do you have flaws? Do you have imperfections? Is there always 5 pounds more to lose or 10 pounds more? It's important to practice self-compassion. And the way that you speak to yourself is really, really important. If you catch yourself speaking negative words to yourself, oh, how stupid could I have been to have done that? What was I thinking? Who do I think I am that I can accomplish that? I don't belong in a room like that with those people. I don't think I'm ever going to reach that level that I want to reach. All of these things that we speak to ourselves in our minds, our brain is listening to. So it is important to practice the dialogue that you speak to yourself. Here is a takeaway that I hope you do. Practice self-compassion and celebrate every single small, insignificant milestone that you manage to achieve. Every week, if you manage to succeed in something, internally celebrate that for yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back every time you do something, because it will start to build your self-worth, which will in fact reduce your need for perfectionism. That's how this works. I no longer feel the need for perfectionism anymore. I know that there will be flaws. I know that I pause during this podcast and I'm okay with it. I don't care if I have to take a drink of water while I'm recording. It's okay. Because the fact that I'm recording a podcast weekly is enough of a milestone for me. So I want you to think about that. Number 5, segment 5, the shift to authentic fulfillment. Here is my confession. Success doesn't feel like I thought it would. Maybe I've been chasing a vision that isn't mine. External success, markers like accolades, awards, award levels, financial gain, the beautiful cars. How many sales did you do? I'm actually going to talk about something which I don't even have in my notes, but I think it's important. Before I got into real estate, I was a university professor. And when we were in the staff room with the other teachers, we did not sit around talking about the class percentage that the students passed in their test. And what I mean by that is, let's say you had a classroom of very smart students. Well, my class has an average of 90%, so that reflects on me and how good I am. We never did that. As a professor and as a teacher, when I lived in Cyprus, I valued the strength of my class based on how well each student progressed forward. Think about this for a minute. My heart would be so full when I knew that I had moved a student with dyslexia that nobody wanted to talk about back then from an E average to getting a C plus and passing his exams to get to university in England. That to me was such a milestone for that young man. His whole life, because no one wanted to believe that he had dyslexia and a learning disability, nobody put their faith in him. He was just left to figure it out, which he couldn't, because when you have dyslexia, it's very difficult to read what you have in front of you, not to mention to write in cohesive sentences, because the writing is most of the time backwards. For him, at least, it was. So I would spend extra time giving him little pointers on how to help trick his brain when he was reading, right? You cover the page, you read one line at a time. Same thing when you're writing. Slowly, analytically writing one word at a time, thinking really deeply and intentionally about what you want to say. To move him from an E, which he had been getting constantly, to a C plus was such a huge milestone. That is where the value of our teaching experience came in. It was moving students from where they were to where they wanted to be. That was the success. So then I go into sales. And now your success is no longer helping this family who could barely afford to buy a property move into the cheapest townhouse that you could find. But guess what? They're no longer renting. That is a huge milestone for them. How about helping the single mom and 2 kids move into their very first home that she would be owning independently on her own, no matter what the cost of that house was? That is the milestone. That's the success. But that is not what is appreciated in sales. It is how many millions of dollars in sales that you sold over the year. And I was in that. I fell into that my first year in real estate because I was told that's what's important. But what happened is that that measure of success just didn't align with my values coming from teaching. What happened to moving the human being from A to B and that being the success story? When did it become about the shallow numbers? Who created that? When I look around at other industries and I look at what they're posting about the success of their companies, have you ever watched the WestJet Christmas stories and helping families' wishes come true by helping bring something or people together with their airplanes? Or the stories that Dove did helping people? That is a measure of success. The commercials that Nike did about reaching your goal, no matter who you are. And they show a young man, maybe 12, 13 years old, overweight, running down the street, but he's running and he's trying to lose his weight. That is the measure of success. So it's interesting that we have famous people like Richard Branson, who has frequently said, what keeps him fulfilled isn't the success of his ventures, but the joy and the fun that he has in the process. We have understood Richard Branson to be a very free spirit. You will never see him in a stuffy suit, in an office environment, putting out numbers. He applauds the people in his companies. He creates amazing marketing campaigns for his new ventures because it's exciting. It brings him alive. You're not going to see him sitting on stage talking about how many millions of dollars in ads he sold on Virgin Radio, because that is not his measure of success. It's how many people can we impact. Here's a little research to support all of this. A Stanford study found that people who align their goals with intrinsic values reported higher levels of happiness and productivity as compared to those chasing extrinsic rewards. I become highly agitated when I hear that a person's value is associated with the number of something that they've sold. Maybe that's just because those aren't my values. And at a certain point, I got tired of chasing the numbers because for me, it was how many people can I impact? How many lives can I help make better? How many lives can I change? It didn't matter if it was a small, cheap, affordable home. I was helping someone to own a home. I've sold the big luxury homes, but guess what? When I did it because those people needed to move on to their next chapter. So again, I was helping them. But to chase these numbers on a paper, they're never going to bring you the joy and happiness you think they will, or that you think you've been looking for. They're wonderful, but I also think you will get there because I have been a very high performing salesperson and broker for 17 years, but I just went about it in a different way. So if you have been chasing deals and transactions and you feel hollow, there is a better way to go about it. Here is an actionable step for you. Reflect on one area of your life where you have been pursuing external validation. How can you shift that goal to better align with what truly resonates with you? What would success feel like if you achieved your goal? Not what it would look like, but how would it feel if you achieved that really big, audacious, hairy goal that you've set for yourself? What is that feeling? That is what you need to be chasing. Let's go to number 6. We only have 2 more to go. Embracing change and becoming unstuck. I have heard the word, I feel stuck. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's next. Over and over for the last few years, particularly from high achievers. Here is my confession number 66. Sometimes it feels like I'm standing between who I am and what I want to be. Sorry, who I am and who I want to be. Let me read that again. Sometimes it feels like I'm standing between who I am and who I want to be. This feeling of that there's a gap between who I am and who I want to be usually comes when your growth is outpacing your comfort zone. Change is very, very necessary for our evolution, for the evolution of our business, for the evolution of just moving forward in life. A lot of people have a fear of losing what's familiar, which is why so many people just stay stuck where they are. Because although it's uncomfortable, it's not a scary place like the unknown. But the unknown is where all of the amazing things happen. That's where the opportunities lie. Sheryl Sandberg. If you have heard of Sheryl Sandberg, she wrote a book called Lean In. She left her very comfortable role at Google for the uncertainty of working at Facebook, later reflecting that it was one of the best decisions she ever made. Because actually, that is what everyone knows Sheryl Sandberg for now, was having worked at Facebook. In the Journal of Applied Psychology, it highlights that change is perceived as threatening due to a fear of loss, but it is in fact essential for progress. What have you been putting off because it is highly uncomfortable? What have you been putting off? What decision are you really stuck on that you know you need to deal with, number one, but it will also move everything in your life forward? Is it a relationship decision? Is it a business decision? Is it a partnership decision? Is it moving your business into a different direction? Is it that you feel stuck in the career that you're in right now, and you've been rethinking what that looks like? Does it still give you the energy and enthusiasm and that love of waking up and jumping into that job every day? Or was that a past you and you feel like you're in a different place now? Here's what I'd like you to think about. What would happen if you took one small step forward toward that goal or that decision that you want to make? What would happen if you reached out and hired a coach and mentor like myself to help you get clear on what it is that you want next in your life? Answering that question, what's next for me? I'd like you to think about one area in your life where you are feeling stuck and take one small proactive step forward. I hope that is reaching out to me so that I can help you possibly change the lens that you're looking at your situation, change your perspective in how you see things happening right now and how they could look if you gave yourself permission to think that far, and to give you the confidence, help you gain the confidence to move forward on your next dream that you've got for yourself. So that brings us to number 7, which is finding joy in the present. This is something I believe is missing in most of society. Living in the present. Here is my confession number 64. I used to find joy in the simplest things, but now it's like I need bigger wins to feel that spark. It's true. The little wins that used to happen, you almost become numb to them, don't you? Like those little things that used to make you really happy, because your expectations have risen so high, because your level of perfectionism has risen so high, possibly out of control, you're numb. Something really great happened for you. Oh, yeah, that was great. What happened to the huge dopamine rush that you used to get? Where did that go? When we are pursuing significant achievements, it can actually dull our appreciation of the small everyday joys that we could be experiencing in our lives. It's like you are robbing yourself of the small, beautiful things that happen every day. When was the last time you woke up in the morning, lay there, and said to yourself, thank you. Thank you for waking me up today? Because there are many other people who didn't get to wake up today. That's a small joy in life. Stepping into a hot shower in the morning. When I lived in Europe, in the winter, There were no hot showers in the morning because the sun hadn't heated the solar panel that heated the tank of water on our roofs that would give us hot water. That small joy, I will never take advantage of again. The fact that you have food to eat in the morning, food that you like eating, the fact that you have freedom of movement. Do you remember during the pandemic that you had to be at home? These little joys that we take for granted because we're looking for that big win. We're looking for the next deal. We're looking for the next big business breakthrough. That's great. But there are so many steps that you need to hit before you get there. What if you started appreciating every little joy that is happening in your life right now? Do you think that you would have more fulfillment and happiness in your life and be in a better mood if you did? I promise you, you will. A really interesting example is Viktor Frankl. And if you haven't heard of Viktor Frankl before, he is a Holocaust survivor, a neurologist, a psychiatrist who was best known for the book he wrote called Man's Search for Meaning. And this is where he discusses finding purpose and joy even in the darkest times. So someone who has been through the Holocaust would definitely understand what it means to get through the darkest times in life. Just imagine what he saw, what he experienced, how he saw human beings act. Frankl's experience in concentration camps taught him that even in unimaginable suffering, one could find moments of meaning and presence. He noted, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing. The last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. You cannot take someone's attitude from them. And you get to decide if that attitude is going to be positive, uplifting, or negative, angry, frustrated, annoyed. Which one do you choose to have every day? Frankl's story demonstrates that finding joy in the present isn't reserved for those without challenges. It is most vital for those who are facing significant trials. Look beyond success and look for the small meaning in your everyday life. If you just wait for the big success at the end of the year or 2 years from now, you are missing out on the beauty that life has to offer you every single day. So here is your actionable step. Try to dedicate 5 minutes today to doing something small that brings you joy. Whether it's listening to your favorite song, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's this podcast. Enjoy a cup of coffee without distraction. Sit outside, no matter what temperature you're in. I have been standing outside, sitting outside in 8 degrees, 10 degrees. It is so beautiful. There is a smell in the air when the air starts to get really cool, and it's beautiful and it's fresh and it's crisp. Take in those senses. Let's go on to our last segment, redefining success through empathy. There is a notion out there by the hustlers, and the grinders and those who are claiming that you can get success in your next 4 deals and all kinds of promises if you just follow their system. However, what I've noticed is that emotion and emotional intelligence never seems to be a part of that area, that mindset. It's about transactions and go. So, one of your most powerful assets as a human being is empathy. Success does not need to make you hard and cynical. You can be highly successful and compassionate and empathetic and human. Here is my confession number 56. Sometimes I find myself dismissing the emotions and challenges of those around me, believing that softening up would derail my progress. But deep down, I know I'm losing touch with what makes me human. There has been a period during my sales career where, in order to continue achieving and getting the accolades and getting the awards, you almost become insensitive to the fact that you're missing out on family events. You are running for everyone that calls you. It becomes transactional. Like, to reach those numbers and be a part of that group that thrives on numbers, you almost have to lose a part of who you are to get there. To have been teaching for 30 years, I had to be empathetic, compassionate, understanding. But none of those traits were respected as highly when I was in sales. It was, how fast can you move to the next deal? How fast can you move through the transaction? How many deals can you get done? And I was always in this torn situation. I remember year 3 in real estate. I had been through one of the most challenging real estate deals I had ever been in. And do you know that it wasn't challenging because of the clients? It was challenging because of the agent who I was dealing with. I had never been spoken to so terribly. I had never been sworn at so with such profanity than this agent, who was female, was doing. And it just seemed to be the way she did business. I hadn't done anything to provoke it. I was just presenting a deal. But her behavior was unbelievable. Like, I till this day, I cannot believe how she was speaking to me. So I remember walking into my manager's office the day after this had happened. It was an evening deal that we were doing, and I was working way up until midnight trying to get it done, taking her profanity because I really was working on behalf of my client. And I remember walking into my manager's office the next day, and I actually said this to him: "Can you help me become a BITCH?" I don't want to say it because then we will change whether this is, for over 18s or not. But I actually said, "Could you help me become a B?" Because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be this rude to people. Can you teach me to become uncaring and unemotional? And he looked at me and he said, "No, I can't." He said, I can give you strategies, but I can't teach you to be like that. So what I learned was that in the pursuit of success, empathy can actually be overlooked as one of your most important skills. Empathy and being compassionate, as well as being a fierce negotiator, has helped me to receive multiple awards over the years for doing a lot of sales. But I had to do it my way. I had to do it in a way that aligned with my values. The truth is that empathy will foster stronger relationships. It will fuel loyalty with people around you. And it will contribute to a much healthier work environment and working relationships with people if you can embrace it. It can be really hard when you are in peer groups where certain values that you hold really dear to you are not respected, or you're seen as different, or maybe you're seen as not as aggressive, right? And strong. It's not true. I actually think you are a stronger, more proactive, and better at your job because you can read people when you have empathy and compassion. And then you also have those skills needed for business, which is business strategy and negotiation and knowing how to read the room. I think when you can encompass all of those skills together, you are untouchable and you are unstoppable. One last example for you, which is from Satya Nadella, which is the CEO of Microsoft. Huge company, right? Nadella transformed Microsoft's culture from one marked by internal competition to one focused on collaboration and empathy. Think about that for a minute. Think about the size of Microsoft. You can imagine what a competitive atmosphere there would have been in that office environment. And this person managed to change the culture from competition to collaboration and empathy. His leadership emphasized the importance of understanding and valuing employees' perspectives, which revitalized the company's innovation and growth. He famously said, empathy makes you a better innovator. So it's really interesting that if you can ignore the immediate peer groups and what you see on social media, and sometimes what you see maybe on local stages around you, and you look to the next level of leadership and what actually moves cultures in companies, and what you actually see as changing perspectives in people, it will come down to becoming a better human being and not a transactional human being. There was a research published in the Journal of Business Ethics that highlights leaders who prioritize empathy see significant improvements in team cohesion and productivity. Empathetic leadership is linked to a decrease in turnover rates and enhanced workplace satisfaction, proving that success and compassion are not mutually exclusive. To wrap this up, success does not mean that you have to be hard and cold and cynical and and what's the word? Play tricks on people and pull the wool over their eyes. It's not about that. Incorporating empathy will help you maintain your humanity while inspiring people around you. What do you think? What do you think of today's episode? What do you think of the confessions that I am going to be putting out every day? Is it something that is a relief to hear, that you're not alone in some of these ideas that you have, that it's okay to think differently and also be successful? High achievement and relentless ambition brings success that is easy to celebrate outwardly, right? It's great for social media. It is great for the show. It is great for the performance. But it's in balance and joy and alignment with your values that will create your lasting fulfillment. If you need help in finding clarity, if any of this resonates with you and you think that I am the person who will help turn around how you feel right now, turn around your business, maybe help you figure out, how do I get from A to B now? I'm not quite clear on my next steps, or you're just not sure what's next for you. There's something out there in your next chapter. You want joy and freedom and fulfillment, but you don't know how to get there. That is what I do. And that is how I help people. And I have different options for you. Visit my website. It is revamped. I am super excited. My designers, Lucas and Jake, have done a phenomenal job on my new website. So www.KatharineLoucaidouCoaching.com. It's all there. There are blogs, courses, podcast, and my course offerings and what it is that I offer now. I want to thank you for tuning in again. And I hope that you are finding some of these ideas are resonating with you. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye for now. Thanks for hanging out with me today on Mindset Medicine. Remember, every step you take toward building a resilient mindset and creating harmony in your life will get you closer to your dreams and that transformation that you've been looking for. If today's episode hit home for you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback is our fuel. Spread the love. Share this podcast with friends and family. Tag me on Instagram at Katharine Loucaidou Coaching. And if you're looking for more tips and resources, head over to KatharineLoucaidouCoaching.com. Stay connected, stay inspired, and keep living your very best life with harmony and purpose. And until next time, my friends, live boldly with purpose.